Welcome to our top story, and this is going to be a great discussion because it's time for us to know where our franchise ends and perhaps where it starts. Talking about disenfranchisement and all that, let's get to know how independent INEC truly is, the Independent National Electoral Commission. Of course, we know that criticism keeps flying left, right, center from civil society organizations, from the Nigerian Bar Association, even from the federal government and two frontline parties as well as other parties, criticizing INEC, whether or not they get things right, whether they get things wrong. But let's get to talk about this with none other than Barrister Tomi Vincent, and together we shall be breaking down the electoral laws as it applies, because in 46 days' time, we might want to exercise and know what we cannot exercise. Good morning, Barrister.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. I see you're well equipped, so I might have to watch what I say and what I don't say.
That's the Constitution.
Yeah. Two of them. Exactly. We're having this conversation this morning as amended, so 2010 as confirmed. But let me start from, it might sound like a very broad question. How independent truly is INEC?
Ideally speaking, for any election to be really called fair and working and workable and seen as well done, ideally speaking, any electoral body at all should be independent. But the independence is somewhat, you want to ask, to what extent can it be practicable? Everywhere in the world, you know, it's just a matter of probably the personal conviction of the people at the seat. Because one way or the other, there's always a connection between you or between the body, electoral body, and, say, the other arms of government, say, the executive and what have you. So it always is a position of thrust of more or less the workability depends on the people who are in charge and how well they are resolved to take it on from there. If you want to be compromised, it's so easy to be compromised. And if you want to be independent, why not? But sometimes, if you want to be independent, it could be at a cost to you.
Okay, so let's know, Zoe asked you that a general question. Let's now bring it in a bit, and let's look at something that doesn't come up enough. The internally displaced people. Now, we were mentioning in our newspaper review that, under that, that Electoral Act, with the amendments we have now, it is INEC's business, how they are now, they've been given that power to ensure that these people are able to vote. And we often say, okay, that's what's said, but the how part is what is missing. Now, how can INEC ensure that internally displaced people will be able to vote? Or is that, not as important as just ensuring we have an election?
It's important that everybody that has the ability should not be disenfranchised. It's very important. And I see what you're trying to say, that INEC should pay attention to those people. They should find a way to get through to them. But remember, the INEC is only a body meant to conduct elections. It's not the same body that has the power to control the security apparatus and what I think. So what I view. So it's a question of, can they go on their own to conduct an election for those internally displaced people, given the fact that all the logistics needed is not within their control, as it were? So it comes back to what's their resolve.
Yes, because I'm seeing this story here. This was in last month that there was, further amendment to the Electoral Act of 2010 to make a provision to empower the Independent National Electoral Commission to ensure that internally displaced persons would vote at elections held during emergencies. So I guess that also begs the question of, even if the states remain in an emergency, situation, it still falls on INEC to not just observe, but also to ensure.
To ensure.
Yeah, but we haven't even heard anything from that quarters as to the plans put in place for these IDPs.
The how, yes.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they have too much plans now, because like I said, even if you have plans in your office, as it were, probably in your back room or your war room, you have a lot of plans there to use. But getting out to execute whatever you have planned you can't go out to go and meet internally displaced people when even the security people that are supposed to give you the cover are not there. So as it were, today, INEC will say, we're going to do it. They might have their plans, but how effective those plans will be and that's exactly what the postponement of election is hinged on. Okay, we are very ready. We know we're very ready. There's nothing stopping us from going on for the election. But somewhat, we have things that are not in our control. The same thing with internally displaced people. Can you get there? Can you meet them?
I guess that's why INEC, I mean, it was the House of Reps that were arguing that INEC should take the responsibility. That's why INEC was saying, well, we can't take that responsibility to ensure this.
If INEC cannot do anything, who can do something? Does it go back to the executive?
Yeah, it's the resolve of it. Let me put it this way. It's entirely the resolve of the executive and probably, let's put it the government, really. Because ultimately, I wouldn't say I'm happy with the postponement INEC did, but let's put it this way. INEC needs police cover. If the executive is not going to give the right orders to the police, they won't move. INEC needs, probably some soldiers as well. If the executive will not tell the service chiefs what to do, really, they won't move. For instance, it's all about if the executive is really ready. That's why I said the independence of INEC, to some regard, yes, constitutionally provided for, but in practicality, it might not as be workable as that.
That's what's key.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because, why shouldn't the presidency or the executive say, you child service chief, go and do all what you want to do to ensure that INEC has the power, has the ability to conduct election. But if security chiefs are coming back and saying, look, we are not guaranteeing the election, I mean, it all puts a question to the independence somewhat of INEC.
Exactly what we're trying to clear out. Now, functions of INEC: first, to register eligible voters, to divide the country into constituencies, lots and lots, to conduct count votes and announce the result of elections. And at some point, I remember back in 2011 when some results were, proven as they were discredited by INEC and they were taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court overruled that decision, and it became a sort of a power tussle between the judicial arm as well as INEC's independence. So many times we see the interference of the judiciary into INEC's business, and it burdens us to question the independence of INEC. I mean, if we're going to be looking at the judiciary overruling INEC's decisions when it comes to pressing matters, like perhaps they notice from the monitoring observation these results cannot fly, and they overrule and say this is not the candidate that won. What will happen in that situation? Because this seems to be a recurrence these days.
There's nothing that stops the judiciary from intervening where there are justiciable or matters before them. The law courts cannot be shut out of anything like that. And ultimately, it's in the purview of INEC to respect the decision of the judiciary. But
can the judiciary respect the decision of INEC?
As long as, the ultimate thing for us is not just the respect of INEC of the judiciary or the respect of judiciary of INEC. It's about the Constitution. What Constitution says that the Supreme Court ultimately is the final court of a land. So, I mean, for election matters, sometimes there's an petition tribunals and sometimes election tribunals, and sometimes there's court of appeal before you move on to the Supreme Court. Now, once a decision is made, that's Constitution. You have to respect it. Obviously, there's a difference between perceptions and reality of law, I must say. And that goes into the jurisprudence of law somewhat. Many of us would see things that say, oh, this is how it is, really, in terms of what we perceive of it. But the practicality of law might not really go that way. So, somewhat, I don't want to take it away from the judiciary in terms of the ability and the power to do what is obviously needed in this circumstance. And it's no matter, when you go to the court, it's about preponderance of evidence. You bring your evidence, I bring my evidence, and the court is not going to be in the tough. It's just going to look at the weight of evidence and make a judgment thereon. So, that said, let's go back to INEC. What the law says that INEC should do is to conduct election in a way that is clear, that is obviously good. But you can't say parties will not have reasons to say, oh, there are some anomalies here, there are some discrepancies there. You can never stop that. Ideally, in good societies, if you remember the time of Jeb Bush, what's the other Bush, and Al Gore, the election of that year, of course, it will have actually cascaded into something more uglier than what we saw. But for the sake of the belief in democratic process, the belief in the good of the society, of the nation, every party buried the hatchet. So you had, you know, a kind of people moving on and say, okay, let's forget whatever wrong.
But what does the law say about disqualifying candidates via, you know, the Act, the Electoral Act? What does the law say for INEC, you know, to get ahead and disqualify a candidate?
No, you can. I mean, there are grounds for disqualification. It's there. I mean, there are grounds if you're not capable. If you're there are so many reasons why a candidate can be qualified
by INEC.
Yes, by INEC. It's a power.
Because I remember there was some kind of this amendment that was brought forward, and there was an omission of that, and someone was saying that it was a mistake. It should have been included at the fact that INEC should be able to disqualify candidates if they do so.
I think this whole brouhaha has stemmed from the 2011.
No, you see, the point is that once, what they're saying is that there are processes that we go through.
Yes.
But once a party has appointed their own, in compliance with those processes, INEC cannot disqualify the person. Do you understand the process now?
Yes.
Okay, these are the laid down procedures that you must go through at your local conventions, party conventions, the process of picking. But once that has been done,
so you feel the party screening should be the final?
Just
as the whole, you know, Buhari certificate scandal.
Look, that certificate scandal is just, for me, it's just trying to, you know, raise some dust unnecessary, because the Constitution is very clear about it. And, you know, Section 131, subsection D of Constitution states clearly that all he needs to have is at least a school certificate.
Let's touch upon the electors, people that would be voting. What right do we have, you know, what say do we have to, in elections being conducted to say, I know monitors, they will definitely submit their reports, the observers, but we as the electors, how can we say, you know what, this election, we do not support it, apart from protests and riots? What provisions do we have cut out in this act that empowers us to stand and say, no, we cannot continue with this result?
Let's put it this way, and let's go back to the issue of law, the pragmatism of law. If you have an issue against a process, you must be able to, he who asserts must prove. If you say something went wrong, you just don't shout something went wrong. You need to go and provide concrete evidence to support that. Many people can't. You just hear in the air that, you know, you heard that something went wrong, then prove it. You don't have, there's a rule of law, supremacy of the law, equality before the law. The law courts are not short.
But you know, that's one law that has been disturbing personally, because sometimes where you have your evidences, you cannot provide it, or you don't even have a physical evidence to actually prove your case. In that case, I know that the Anambra State INEC Electoral Commissioner is saying that he's advising the electorate to go out with their phones, just to, you know, grapple evidence. And I'm wondering, is that our job because we want to provide some sort of evidence? You want to quote something?
No, let's put it this way. Look, for all intents and purposes, you could not, let's not take it away from, sometimes you have security apparatus that is compromised, right? Yeah. You have individuals too that are biased. They want to take the picture, so let's assume there's a fracas going on caused by a political party. Probably the agent of that political party was the first person that threw the punch. And then when the other party is replying the punch,
that's when they take the picture.
So you have a lot of biases that's going on, and so that's why
you know, carrying the flag isn't.
So that's why I mean, when it comes to law, many people have sentiments about what and what it's not. But the business of the law is not about the sentiments. It's not about, you know, trying to draw scenarios. It's about the reality of proving, making a proof of your case, and then stating it, and then everybody coming to terms with the fact that this is how it ought to be. So I see a lot of things, and that's why the polity, the collective people and collectivity of our Nigerians should start embracing the essence of democracy. It's not about a do-or-die affair. Even those in power should not see themselves as, you know, having the need to perpetuate themselves in power forever. I mean, everybody should see that this is about governance, and governance is not the sole preserve of any person.
We have to drop it at this point. We do hope to get you back, perhaps for a part 2. Maybe after the first set of elections, we now get to know much more with that as a case study. But of course, the post-conversation will be on facebook.com/CoolTV Nigeria, as well as on Twitter. I want to say a big thank you to our guest. And he is Barrister Tomi Vincent. We'll probably pay you a visit at that place.
That you invited to.
You should come.
Honorary students.
Well, let's ask Mr. Victor, will you be taking your phones? I know you might be standing in for Nigeria Info as one of the monitors, but will you be taking your phone as an observer to take pictures in case something goes wrong?
Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria. God bless you.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.